Logan, to a certain extent, if you go back the season before in 2021, Jeremy Johnson not only, showed up and lit it up and set it himself up to make a lot of money in the NFL draft, but also kind of raised the bar for the defense and kind of showed the way for a lot of guys that, coming from an SEC school, this is the standard that we need to get back to here. And I almost kind of like in a different way that to Jamie Robinson in the defensive backfield, and now he leaves, and just talk about the safety position with his absence.
Yeah, no, Jamie being gone, it definitely stinks in that role. And I want to bring up back another player too, and I forgot to mention him, Jarian Jones being in that slot position too, that Florida State's going to be able to work with. Or either if you have him in the corner, they can work him a little bit. But Jarian Jones is going to play a significant role too in that competition that's going to be heating up. But going back, like you were just speaking about, the safety position, losing Jamie Robinson, we just had him on our show a couple weeks ago. Great guy. He's going to do. I think he has a stellar career, just the mindset that he has. But losing a player like that played very well for Florida State this last season, you got to figure out who's going to fit that role, who can help the most. And you're bringing back Akeem Dent, a veteran defensive back, veteran safety that was dealing with injuries this last year. I think Akeem had very high expectations for himself this last year, but injuries really altered that. But having the experience of Akeem Dent this year, going into spring, going into fall, will be huge for him. And then you're adding on guys that have been around the program for a little bit. I think the one that I was mentioning earlier in the beginning of our show in the intro, Mark, is Shyheim Brown. Shyheim Brown, as you're putting here on the screen, 36 tackles, about 2 tackles for losses, almost 2 sacks. He's a young stud. He's one that I think has raw talent that if Patrick Surtain Sr. and the rest of the defensive staff, if they can really mold him, develop him, this is a star in the making. I think he's maybe out of the last couple cycles of safeties, including Jamie. Jamie, he's going to do his thing in the NFL. Shyheim Brown, just raw talent-wise, is at the top tier, in my opinion, just from what we've seen practices, and then we've seen just signs of it in games. He's going to play a lot in 2023, and it's going to be because he knows where he needs to be. He has the physical attributes, Florida State's biggest safety in that room. Going to see a lot of Shyheim Brown, and I want him to work himself into being a solidified starter after this spring. That's what I'm expecting from him. I think that's what he should be expecting from within himself. He's got the talent, and I think, Florida State fans, kind of watching a little bit of him, want to see that too, but we got to see him make that next step. And Florida State, I know, just looking at him, and from what I heard of Jamie Robinson too on our podcast a couple weeks ago, saying that he named him being one of the bigger leaders on that defense. And that says something from such a young player of that magnitude. And I can't tell you enough how excited I am for Shyheim Brown to make that next step going into this spring camp.
Logan, in regards to looking at the 2023 recruiting class, I know it's kind of tough to tell, and this is a better question maybe in 6 weeks after we've gone through spring practice and the spring game. But do you have any projections? I know you named a couple guys from the class, but who could maybe not start, but certainly make an impact, get some meaningful snaps? Anybody that you think has that kind of potential to make a bit of a splash the first fall?
I'll be honest with you. At least spring wise, I'm gonna watch Akeem Dent and Travis Jay go at it. Both guys with well enough experience. Now Akeem Dent probably having more playing time experience, but not a whole ton. I mean, Akeem Dent dealt with a lot of stuff this last season. If I'm watching something that could have it in front of our eyes, I'm looking at maybe Travis Jay of making a splash, and I'm going off of just. This is raw thoughts. I can't cheat. I can cheat on Wednesdays, Mark, but this time I can't cheat. We haven't seen a practice yet, so I'm really just taking a true guess. But from what I've heard since the last snap of Florida State's game against Oklahoma and kind of the leadership that Travis Jay has brought and good things that I'm hearing from recruits and then newcomers coming in, transfers, and how much Travis Jay played an impact on them visiting Florida State before it ended up picking the Seminoles. I like the invested part of Travis Jay. I know what I'm getting physically out of him being a big time competitor during practices whenever he was working with the practice squad this last year, practice team. I would look at maybe a Travis J name for a potential splash here. Yeah, you'll have some newcomers, some younger guys. We know we're going to get out of Fentrell Cypress. I don't want to name really Azare to take that kind of splash spot because I know what I'm getting sort of right now out of him, and I want him to take that next step too. But I like taking risks. I'm gonna risk it for a biscuit. I'm gonna go with Travis J. I'd like to see it. It would be a great story to see him evolve into what we all expected him to be coming into Florida State. And with Patrick Surtain Sr., I'm expecting a lot of buy-in from these guys. And I would maybe keep an eye on Travis J, maybe Jarian Jones too. A lot of people give him a lot of heat, Mark. There's always that one player that is usually a defensive back. And if for some reason they're out of coverage or they let wide receiver get the route on him, then that's immediately get him off the field, put out a freshman. Who cares? Just take Jarian Jones out. That's the player that for Florida State, it's Jarian Jones. And I think I need people to kind of chill out on that. And I think he showed that. I don't think there will be too much more of that going into the season, but nonetheless, there will be some FSU Twitter people not so happy if a wide receiver beats him on a route this year. But I think, yeah, you got to get better and you can shut them up. And he was able to do that after that Florida game. And I'm happy for him to be able to do that, but it's a new season. That's all wrapped up and he's got to make that next step. So maybe Jarian Jones and Travis J, maybe some guys that could maybe make a splash that weren't as much expected getting into the rotation, which they already are, but maybe fighting for more playing time over some of the guys that we thought were solidified.
Folks, if you enjoy the content, give us a like, and why not share these videos out on social media? And of course, subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. Catch Logan's show every Wednesday at 8, Knoll Game Day. It's right here on YouTube. And of course, that's right after you check us out Wednesday at 6 with Logan, Jason, and James on FSU Live. All right, Logan, appreciate you doing all the work on the offense and the defense for us as usual.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for having me as you usually do. It's been great always coming on here and being able to talk Florida State offense and defense before going into spring camp. So we're only a few days away, Mark. So I'm looking forward to coming back on here and giving some thoughts on what we're getting out of Mike Norvell's 4th spring camp.